Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video. Another paid request, this time for Andrew. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of reviews or topics, commentaries, reactions, re-reviews, what have you, feel free to send it. Either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. Now this is for Breaking Bad Season 1, Episode 6. And I just say so far I've been enjoying this first season of Breaking Bad. I can see why it's gotten a lot of the good notices. The acting's been pretty solid, especially by Bryan Cranston. You definitely see a progression of the story where, right from the get-go, you have Walter White, who is suffering from cancer. In this case, he's now going through chemotherapy. He's gone back to making meth with Aaron Paul. He's very serious and steadfast on this business end. Aaron Paul just to learn a little bit more about Walter White, saying, "Oh, you're doing this because you're dying and you want something for your family because you recognize as a mark, and a relative of his had the same mark on their chest." And the way it begins definitely begins with intrigue because Walter White says, "When I do this, no more bloodshed." But then it cuts to what we're going to see later on, which is him shaved, bald, and a bloody nose walking out of a building that's on fire and has exploded. So that definitely catches the viewer intrigue as to how the hell it came to be that way. So if you have a little bit of him dealing with chemotherapy and suffering from it and getting sick and puking. His brother-in-law, who works with the drug enforcement, he found a gas mask earlier in the show, but that leads him to who he thinks is a culprit, is a janitor. And you tell Bryan Cranston feels bad about this, but at the same time he can't say anything. This janitor was a good guy to him, even offered him some gum when he was after he one of those sessions after chemotherapy where he was puking his guts out. The guy offered him gum, so that he's a decent guy. But he's taking the fall, and so Bryan Cranston feels bad about that. But again, for him, there's not much he can do about it. As they're making drugs, they realize they're not making enough money, and ask Aaron Paul what they need to do next. And Aaron Paul goes, "Well, there's a guy named Tuco. I could try to talk to him." And I recognize the guy who played Tuco. It's Raymond Cruz. This is a guy that's, if you watch a lot of movies in the 90s, you go, "Oh, it's that guy." He was one of the characters in Alien Resurrection. He had a small part in Clear and Present Danger. He had a small part in Under Siege as one of the cooks working with Steven Seagal. Aaron Paul and someone he knows goes up to him and go be given a bad deal. Aaron Paul rejects it. He gets the shit kicked out of him, put in the hospital. And Walter White is a bit, I don't want to say standoffish, but yeah, he's a bit, he has a lot of friction with Aaron Paul's character, but at the same time you get a sense of maybe some underlying care that he has for this guy, or at least if not care, then hey, this is my partner in this. Maybe a head to feeling bad for what happened to this guy. And it's funny, I guarantee this is on purpose. There's a scene earlier on where he's teaching a class. He's teaching a class about the chemicals mercury fulminate, mercury fulminate. And a line he says is, "The faster they undergo change, the more violent the explosion." As I heard that line, I said, okay, maybe it's a bit on the nose, but that's his character. I mean, it's this mercury fulminate, which comes into play at the end of the episode, very importantly, but that's easily this character. He undergoes this sudden change within the span of these couple episodes. And you get this more violent of this reaction where the drug dealer guy before has been killed, and Then you had the body that was being burned up, but then Aaron Paul fucked up, so the tub went through the fucking floor, and you had this gush of blood and bone and guts. And then what happens here? Now, I don't know if throughout the show it goes more to a backstory of Walter White, as in maybe throughout the years he was kind of pushed down, or he was told not to do this, told not to do that, so because he's able to do this, he gets such a rush out of it. Or I don't know if he did that, it'd be more of cliche or more predictable. The little bit that you did in this season is that in a previous episode or two, he was with these group of people. He signed off on this deal, but because he signed off too early, the other people went off and became millionaires while he just became a teacher. So you did guarantee there's a bit of anger because of that. But after seeing Aaron Paul in the hospital, he shaves his head. He goes in. He's like, listen, makes up a name for himself, Heisenberg, and Bryan Cranston knows how to play dead serious and a guy you don't want to fuck with. That's why I think if they did do a Mr. Freeze with the sequel to the Batman, I think Bryan Cranston would be a perfect choice for that because he could show vulnerability like it does when he's dealing with the chemotherapy. But when he needs to turn on that switch and be intimidating and serious, right there when he's talking to Tuco and says, 50,000, 35,000 for the drugs, 15,000 for my partner's pain and suffering. They'll all laugh at him. Oh, by the way, the stuff I brought you, it ain't meth. And he throws it, and this big explosion. Pretty well done for a TV show. The windows are blown out. Like I said, pretty solid practical effects for a TV show. Now he's got a lot more, and he's ready to throw down. And not only do the characters believe it, but you, the audience, believes that he's willing to do this because he's dying. He doesn't have much left, and if he can't do this, then there's no point in living for him anymore. Either he needs his money to give his family a retirement when he's gone, or he ain't having it, and you could say even maybe it's a bit of a death wish as well. Go out with a bang instead of a whimper. That's what it seems like for at least a piece of it, to go out with a bang and not a whimper. To not slowly be eaten away by this disease, but to go out, whether yelling, cursing, kicking, screaming, hooping, hollering, rebel without a cause, however you want to put it. So when he's able to get out of it, you see him like at the steering wheel, like he got this big rush, which I'm sure leads into other episodes where maybe we did a bit of a change in his demeanor, a bit of a change in his character, because of maybe to get more of this constant rush as well as his plan for his family. Like I said, it's definitely been a build-up, but it's been a build-up that's fairly well established and fairly well written. And I do commend the episode for that. I would say definitely one of the better episodes of the season, because you get to see some of the payoff or some of the build-up going on. Because you can only tease an audience for so long in build-up. You have to give them something eventually, and I thought this, you get to see his shaved head, you get to see that demeanor, you get to see that persona. Like, okay, this is going to be the persona leading off into the good chunk of the rest of the show. It went by a fast pace. Never got bored with it. I thought it was definitely one of the more tighter episodes of this season. And it's interesting about the show, from what I heard, that it lasted a couple seasons, and they purposely ended it because they wanted to end it on a high note, which I thought was actually a rather smart idea. Because that's the problem with a lot of shows, is that they go on for so long. Either people get bored with it, get a melancholy where, yeah, it's on, but obviously there's some people watching it, but it's on such a low barometer that it might as well not be on. Like The Simpsons. It always amazes me that The Simpsons are still on, and I never hear anybody talking about, hey, you check out that new episode of The Simpsons? No, because I don't know anyone who still watches the show. Because I never hear anyone talk about it. Or if they do talk about Simpsons, they talk about the older stuff. Same with other long-running shows. Or you have shows that start off strong, but then they always talk about, well, the last season, or the last 2 seasons, or the last 3 seasons were pretty wonky. And so many times they should have ended it sooner. They should have ended it a year before. They should have ended it 2 years before. So, definitely had some people. And I know the guy who created this worked on the X-Files. Was it Vince Gilligan, I want to say? Maybe they should have gotten him instead of Chris Carter to reboot the X-Files for that stupid revival that was a putrid dump. And that's the thing, like in the long run, Vince Gilligan seemed like, based on this season, based on what I've heard, had a better understanding of how to do a show than Chris Carter. Chris Carter seems like he has ideas, but he doesn't know how to finalize a show. This, he knows that there has to be an end, and don't stretch it until it breaks. So yeah, Bryan Cranston does a great job as a guy that, again, when he's with his family, there's a bit of vulnerability, but then there's this serious business side, when he's, again, either talking to Aaron Paul, not wanting any bullshit, or deal with these drug dealers. And it doesn't feel phony. It doesn't feel false. It doesn't feel like, oh, I don't buy this shit, or I don't buy Bryan Cranston being this way. No, I do, because he's a pretty damn good actor. Overall, solid episode. I can't complain about it. So, with that said, thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.